A moment comes in a nation's history when we must ask ourselves a national question. And today in Nigeria, the national question is, how do we survive as a people? How do we build our country? And how do we make the difference that is capable of driving a national narrative that is effective in giving our people not only jobs, but also in developing an economy that is sustainable? A country with over 50 million arable hectares of farmland cannot complain of hunger. A country with 50 million youths cannot complain of the capacity or the ability to utilize the 50 million arable hectares of farmland across the country. The Nigerian Farmers Group and Cooperative Society is a body of Nigerians who are ready to change the narrative for the good of our people. It is time to walk the talk. Because if we don't, then we have no reason to complain when we are hungry. If we don't, we cannot stand up and count ourselves a nation that should stand in the League of Nations when it is time, when that time arrives. Not at all. In all of the countries of the world, what they did was that because agriculture was a very major component of their growth, they developed other industries like the oil industry to support machinery so that those machineries can be used in the productive sector of the economy. In order for you to have agriculture properly developed, you need oil, you need roads, you need every form of mechanization to make it work. Because when it works, the people enjoy. When it works, the people are employed. When it works, everything that needs to be done is done for the interest of the people. So, it is clear that countries went through the development process so that in order to develop their agriculture and industrialize their people, they have to develop sources of energy, they have to develop sources of transportation. This is rice. You see, I'm picking up this rice, not that I'm happy. I'm not happy. I'm actually very sad. Because what it takes to move this rice, process it into what you can eat and consume in this country does not take anything. But we import billions, we spend billions of naira to import this. And we are complaining that we are hungry as a people. We are not angry enough in Nigeria. Look, we know our mumu plenty. What you need to process rice, to process 1 trailer of rice every 3 days is exactly what you have here. This is your milling plant. This is your distoner that distone the parboiled rice. You distone the rice, run them through the milling, run them into the milling plant. There's a conveyor belt that conveys the rice and then dumps them into the milling plant. This process, most of the time, this process is imported from China. This process is imported from Thailand. We are not angry enough as people. We are not thinking as a people that wants to grow. We are not thinking of the unemployment in Nigeria. We are not thinking of the suffering Nigerian people. We are such a useless people that the practicality of the solution to our problem lies in our hands, lies with us, with every land and people in every sector of this country. We're not the best enough. We're useless for this country. Our problem, the solution to our problem lies right here in Nigeria, but we import rice. We create somewhere now. We go hungry, die. Hungry go kill us for this country. Whenever I read that, they born like pigs. We born anyhow. We go born those children. Those children go become terrorists. They go become Boko Haram. They go shop us. They go cook us as food. They go chop them. We useless. So we're not ready in this country. Let us not begin to farm palm kernel in the south. Begin to farm gari in the south. Begin to farm what we can produce. We create somewhere. Let me be right to tell again. At the best. Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon. This is Mr. Red Sinteleke. I'm the National Coordinator of the Nigerian Farmers Group and Cooperative Society. And I'm here this afternoon to talk about the domesticating the Nigerian economy domesticating production and subsidizing growth. From the experience of a farmer and comrade, an activist, we need to tell ourselves some truth. Because when we are honest with ourselves, it is easier for us to look at the challenges that is facing us as a country and solve them. What is the truth? The truth is that no nation on earth develops without developing the local infrastructure. It's impossible. If we premise our growth, if we premise our productivity, if we premise our development on the external forces, on importation, on productive forces that are driven not by the local economy, but by external forces, we will never grow as a country. And so the first things we must begin to do as Nigerians, whether we're looking at our homes, or we're looking at our offices, whether we're looking at our projects, or we're looking at our programs, and all of our schedules, we as a people must above all things realize that we need to look in, we need to look within to grow the Nigerian economy. What do I mean? Like I've always said, you see, the factors of production, the processes of production, every aspect of the productive process demands certain elements that are vital for national growth. In the case of Nigeria, there are key two elements that we have in abundance: land and people. It is high time we utilize those two for the interest of our country and for the progress of our collective well-being. What must we do? What we must begin to do now, like Nurudi said this morning, is to begin to look at the infrastructural deficit of the Nigerian state. Look, let us not kid ourselves. As important as stomach infrastructure, if you and I, if governments at the local, state, and the federal level fail to look at the infrastructural component of the Nigerian state, productivity and increase in our capacity to be independent of the sanity of importation that has driven us to the point of perpetual poverty can never be solved. So what must we do? What we must do first and foremost is to ensure that we domesticate productivity by increasing infrastructural growth at those levels of government where we know that every amount of money that you push there will be utilized for the sake of the people, not for the sake of those who don't need to use it. Like I've always said, if you give a poor man in this country 100,000 naira and you give a rich man in Nigeria 100,000 naira, the poor man will spend his 100,000 naira today. In short, within 1 week, his money is gone. And what is he going to spend his money on? He's going to spend that money on food. He's going to spend that money on fuel. He's going to spend that money on transportation. He's going to spend that money on what is necessary to drive the economy of this country strongly. Now, take that same 100,000 and give it to a Dangote of this world. It is nothing to him. He's likely going to use it and buy a gift, or any one of these big men, for his girlfriend, for his family, or anybody. You see, the capacity of that man to utilize that fund to regrow the Nigerian economy is very limited compared to the poor man who will utilize it. So what must we do? What we must do is to begin to think about those factors of production that are capable of affecting those in the rural areas, those in urban centers where there is currently no infrastructural support that is able to give life to their dreams. What do I mean? Power. What do I mean? Petroleum products. What do I mean? Agriculture. See, it brings us from the narrative that it brings us from domesticating factors of production to subsidizing growth, in the sense that the average Nigerian person has access to that which is capable of helping his innovation, of helping his desire, of helping his drive to understand that if I grow, based on the fact that the infrastructure have been provided, I am capable of having something to the country. And look at it this way, and please let's take it from me and ask any economist. One of the finest and the most unique aspects of productive growth generally is the small business person. Is the man who employs one person. Is the man who employs 2 people. Is the man who employs 5. Is the man who employs 10. Because whatever Dangote produces, because whatever Otedela is going to push out, because whatever Wale Adenuga is going to, the media tycoon at Glo is going to push out, he needs those who are at the local level. He needs those who are at the micro level. He needs those who are at the small level, small scale level, to push, to act as the pipe that pushes whatever they are pushing out into the market, into utilization, into capacity processing, into the entire monstrous industrial process that is capable of driving real growth. So, what are we supposed to do? What we need to do, what government needs to begin to do right now, other than massive investment into infrastructure. And when we talk about this investment into infrastructure, we need to look at what they mean. 1, transportation. A farmer, and most of our productive centers that are the rural area are not able to access markets. And so you see that most farmers who are actually keen into the Buhari agricultural message don't have the capacity to move their goods from the rural area to the market. And so somebody spends 200,000-300,000 naira to produce 1 hectare of maize. How is he going to get that maize from a local village to the market so that he can make profit and continue to probably grow maize? You see it? So if the infrastructural network is not there, it is impossible for this man to do what? To move these goods. And that is why you have to give credit to this government. A lot of people will say why? Because one of the things they have done and they're trying to do is to grow is to look at transportation as a core component of industrialization. Is to look at transportation as a key element of economic growth. You're talking about rail. You're talking about fixing our road infrastructure. You're talking about connecting local communities. You're talking about connecting rural infrastructure that needs rural production line that needs to feed urban industrial circles that is capable of sending goods across to wherever they are needed. So transportation is key. Secondly, energy. See, no matter how much you do or you try to engage in the production process, once energy is not there, what you do is you escalate the cost of production. And so, for example, if you come to the farm where we are right now, we provide our own energy. Right here we have 2 Lister generator, 1 English generator, and about 5 to 6 petrol generator. That is in excess of about 100,000 naira to power all those energy infrastructure in every 2 or 3 days. That increases the cost of production for the average Nigerian farmer, for the average Nigerian businesses, for the small businessman that needs all forms of subsidies to survive. So what must government do? And what must the Minister of Trade, Foreign Investment, and all of them do? What they must do is to encourage investment into the energy sector, because whether we like it or not, as much as the government would want to do to correct the insanity that has deprived that energy sector of continuing of the right investment, of the right growth, of the right channels of support, what must be done is to create a mix between what the government is capable of doing, between what the government is capable of guaranteeing, and what the private sector is willing to do, so that we can ensure that growth is sustained. Because what begins to happen is that once you have energy, of course, we can't move from the situation where we have just about 7,000 megawatts of generation right now to 100,000 megawatts over the next 1 year, over the next 2 years, over the next 10 years. It's not possible. Let's tell ourselves the truth. So what do? Like what the Vice President suggested during the campaigns and what they said they are trying to do is to begin to create clusters of energy to those sectors of the Nigerian economy that are capable and ready to grow. And what you do is once you create clusters, you create power points, you create energy sources, you create energy points. What you begin to do is to support the cost of production, help them with regards to their cost of production, and support industrialization at pocket level, at what you call cluster level, and help in increasing productivity, domesticating productivity, and increasing output. Now,
Once you are able to do that, you have been able to we support the infrastructure. You create and support the domestication of our industrialization by providing energy. What you are doing is to reduce the cost of production, increase capacity to access to market, and boom, the economy will begin to feel the impact of real growth. Now, if you take out those two, what is the next thing that must be done? The Nigerian agricultural sector is a sector that needs everything to make it work. Look, somebody jokingly said the other time that when Air sacked teachers from the primary school, he said they should go to the farms. We shouted and said, no, why should the teachers come to the farm? Do they think that farming is that easy? Guess what? Farming is, above all things, not easy. However, it is the only sector that is capable of taking all. Pull them all together. Whether you sabi book or you no sabi. Whether you go school or you no go school. Whether you be proper teacher or you no proper teacher. If you get 1 hectare of farmland, if you get 1 acre of farmland, you will be able to learn from your mistakes. You'll be able to utilize what you have to be able to provide for yourself and for your family. So what must be done? There is a need for us to increase the agricultural budget. Look. Let's not stop kidding ourselves. My friend Tiki Ajayi, who is a headsman in Canada, said that last year Canada brought in $1.6 billion from the meat, from animal husbandry, from cattle alone. What we must begin to do as a people is simple. Is to look at agriculture as a source of not just sustainability, overcoming the problem of poverty and hunger, but as a source of direct foreign investment, as a source of forex, and as a source of a whole core of our economic development and growth. Like I've always posited, and a lot of you are aware of this already. There is no way Nigeria can develop today without utilizing agricultural potentials. It is a mirage. There is no sector that is capable of growing the Nigerian economy today. There is no sector that is capable of growing our GDP by more than 10% annually than the agricultural sector. Because you can speak all the tongues you want to speak. We do not have the industrial capacity. And even if we have the industrial capacity, what we must try and do as a country is to support the industrial capacity of the agricultural sector. So that, for example, like Nigerian Farmers Group, we got some of our treasures from Ibadan. One of our families in Ibadan. We got some of our, treasures from a production plant in Ibadan and Enugu. Now look at what it's doing. What we are doing is that because we are farming maize in Nasarawa, we are able to look at production plants in Enugu and in Ibadan and bring in those who are already utilizing what they have, who are capable of producing shellers. You have factories lining up that are producing agricultural input. Look at what's happening with Kaduna State. Look at what's happening in Kebbi with regards to rice. Look at Olam. Yes, of course, we have our challenges with Olam when they talked about importation. But look at the millet plant they have in Kaduna. Look at the plants coming up in places like Sokoto. Look at the plants coming up all over the north. What is happening? They are beginning to understand that for you to grow your people, for you to solve the crisis of unemployment, for you to solve the crisis of overdependency on oil, for you to solve the crisis of our insanity of seeking jobs that are not there, we must develop the agricultural sector. We must make the agricultural sector profitable. Every farmer must see that I can go out into the field and plant. I can go out into the field and own animals. I can go out to the field and become a poultry farmer. I can go out to the field and become a fish farmer, like Nurudi Toba, a very good friend. And make good money. And make more money than I make if I go into the oil sector. And make more money than I make than if I go and build schools. Of course, there's nothing wrong with building schools. But look, the proliferation of quack educational institutions and schools around are one of the things that is killing us as a people. When schools are built, I went to Rimi. First, I went to James West Grammar School in Mevo and the Rimi College in Kaduna. Those were schools that had football fields. Those were schools that had their own farms. Those were schools that had their own laboratories. Those were schools that had everything. And so when you were developing as part of, when you go to school, you were growing with all that was made available to you. Once we have this, it helps. And so we must ensure that government at all levels, look, this is very important. The federal government is doing a lot already with regards to supporting the agricultural sector. What are the state governments doing? What are the local governments doing? Government at all levels must ensure that farming is subsidized for the average Nigerian. Like I said, if you go to India today, the state of Punjab, 4 million tractors. How many tractors do we have in Nigeria? We have less than 100,000 working tractors. What does that tell you? It means that we are not capable of developing our agricultural sector at all with that number. How many bulldozers do we have in Nigeria? How many combined harvesters do we have in Nigeria? How many boom sprayers do we have in Nigeria? How many planters do we have in Nigeria? We need all of these numbers in hundreds of millions. So that when you go into production, you can produce enough to take care of your local needs and then enough to begin to process for international market. How come Switzerland, that produces not one cocoa, is the biggest exporter of chocolate in the world? How come? When we have places like Ivory Coast, you go to the southwest of Nigeria, where you have cocoa all over, we are not producing chocolate. Look at the insanity. So, what are we talking about? In domesticating productivity, we must subsidize growth and production. In domesticating our capacity to be able to produce and feed ourselves and go after the main Nigerian food or the main Nigerian productive component of oil industrialization, we must, above all things, subsidize production. We must subsidize the electricity for the Nigerian people, increase production, electricity production, and subsidize it for our people. We must massively go into infrastructural development. The effort that have been put into place are good, but it's not good enough. We need much more. We must, above all things, subsidize agricultural production so that projects like the Nigerian Farmers Group, projects like what Nuruddin Toba is handling, projects like what people like Mike Odima Ojo, my very good friend, and so many other Nigerians are doing, will help us in driving a narrative that is not only productive, but a narrative that is nationalistic, a narrative that is capable of sustaining our people, a narrative that is capable of solving the problem of unemployment, a narrative that is above all things capable of driving us towards that moment where we can say, yes, we are capable of growing as a nation of dependent minds, of independent mind, a nation of people who are willing to occupy their minds for the good of all. It is time we ignore the insanity of separation, the insanity of deception, the insanity of looking at every problem that is Nigeria right now as a herdsman problem. Let me say this, if we've not said it before. Yes, there is a problem of herdsmen. Yes, there is a problem of communal clashes all around the Middle Belt. But if we take this problem, instead of looking at it from the Nigerian national question, but instead we look at it from the issue of ethnocentric and bigoted sentiment. If we look at our problem with the eyes of ethnicity, if we look at our problem with the eyes of religiosity, I can even look at this problem with the eyes of religiosity. When above all things, if you know, Islam was imported from Arab, Christianity imported from the West. So how can we take the two imported religions and utilize them to drive a message of separation, when we should look at Nigeria as a country and drive a message of unity, a message that is capable of sending us into a stage where we can look at upward trajectory, not a stage where we can look at ourselves and tell ourselves, oh, it's a Fulani man, oh, it's an Igbo man, oh, Hausa man. Look, we must begin to live like a people who are willing to drive our message of development without looking like a people whose interest in development is not skin deep. It's not deep in a passion for Nigeria. Nigeria is our country. We have no other. Look, Donald Trump said it is time to make America great again. My message to you and every Nigerian is, it is time to make Nigeria fulfill the potential that we are capable of fulfilling. Nobody will make this work for us if we don't domesticate productivity and we don't subsidize growth and productivity for the interest of our people. Look, we can speak on the English we want to speak. We can talk about all the economic theories we want to talk about. But remember the words, remember the theories of Alexander Hamilton, who said that for America to grow, then America must protect their infant industry. I remember the words of Ursula Grant, United States President, who told the British, above all things, that Britain, you are encouraging us to adopt free trade. Thank you, Britain. But wait, America will develop our economy first. After developing our economy, then we'll talk about free trade. Luckily for them, they developed early. And what happened? Until the 70s, America was not talking about free trade. The concept of neoliberalism, the concept of free trade and open up your market, open up your border, we want to globalize so that we can call, everybody can come in. Let it be a global village. Where did the concept of global village start? Like Professor Hanji Chang said of Princeton University, the West have always kicked away the ladder. They've kicked away the ladder of localization. They kick away the ladder of sustainable development. They kick away the ladder of local development. It is time for us to fabricate our own ladder, grow our economy locally, and every other thing we will resolve. The problem of unemployment will be solved for the interest and the growth of our people. Do not be swayed by the person that is telling you to deregulate the Nigerian petroleum sector. Look, that doctrine of deregulation is the doctrine of demonic growth that will never support the local market but the foreign market. What is the concept of deregulation? Concept of deregulation: leave your economy, let your economy flow, let the forces of market and supply be the ones that helps you to grow your economy. That, you know, is the story all about supply and demand. Supply and demand cause supply and demand me. Look, the concept of deregulation, if you don't know, is allowing your local industry to die so that those who can import cheap will import it to your economy and kill you. Now, I've asked this question 1,000,001 times. Give me an answer. If you deregulate and you say let all the petroleum marketers import, can you ever develop your refineries? Can you ever develop your local content? You will never ever develop your local content. Deregulate maize, for example. We produce maize. Deregulate maize and allow Olam, all of them, to import. Let's look at the key. The key is this: when you want to deregulate maize, what happens? Everybody will begin to import maize. If the government of India is subsidizing the production of maize in India by 70%, the government in Brazil is subsidizing the production of maize in Brazil by 40%. The government in Italy subsidizing the production of maize in Italy, of grains in Italy, by 50%. That in the US does that by 50%. So you have deregulated the maize industry. Let everybody come in and play, and so that we can have cheap maize. What is going to happen is that the government in India is going to continue to subsidize production in India. The US will continue to subsidize production in the US. So the man who produces maize in India, who is farming 1 hectare in India and is getting 20 to 25 tons or 10 tons per hectare, comes to your market. He can sell this maize at 65,000 naira a ton. He doesn't care because he's producing at about 20, 30,000 naira a ton. Okay, me, Nigerian Farmers Group, we are producing at about 300 plus, 1,000 plus a ton, a hectare. What happens? I am not able to make up to 10 tons per hectare. The man in India produces more than 10 tons per hectare. Government takes away 70% of his cost. Who takes away my cost here? Nobody takes away my cost. And because nobody takes away my cost, the cost of sales here will be higher. So deregulate, okay, everybody imports. How will I be able to survive? How can I succeed? How will Nigerians succeed? Now look at the job component of deregulation as against the job component of localization and telling the Americans to go to hell. I am going to support my industry. When jobs are coming, where are they coming from? Olam is going to employ about how many people? If they decide that they want to import, how many people are they employing? Maybe 1,000. Give them 1,000 people they are employing in their factory. How many people are you going to employ in the ports? You are going to employ about plus or minus maybe another 1,000, 2,000. How many people are you going to employ in the US? Companies who are going to every other employment is generated in the countries that are importing to you. Now, if it takes 100,000 hectares to produce, take note, 100,000 tons of 10 tons per hectare. Okay, it means you're looking at about 1,000,000 tons of maize. 100 hectares. Every hectare will take about 5 workers. 5 times 100 is how many? 500,000 jobs will be created if government decides to subsidize the production of maize in places like Nasarawa. 500,000 jobs as against about 2,000 jobs that you are going to gain when Olam, for example, a company like Olam decide they want to import. You are going to generate 1,000 jobs here, 1,000 jobs at the port. So for the sake of 2,000 jobs, you are saying that 500,000 jobs should be eliminated. Now think of localizing productions in all of this, in every state. You go to Kaduna, what are they focused on? Ginger. Government gets involved and invite investors, hammer it. Go to all the states, fish and all of them. Once you decide to subsidize them, you are going to increase production. We're talking about unemployment. There is no job that the regulation will give to you that localization will not give to you times a million %. These are the facts. People that tell you, people that talk to you about deregulation, free market, and they don't tell you of the implication of dumps. They don't tell you of the implication of foreign interference. They don't tell you of the implication of your country becoming a dump site. When your country is a dump site, India subsidizes their own. You can never subsidize your own. They will WTO, World Trade Organization. Whose interests are they serving? Are they serving the Nigerian interests or they are serving their interests? As I speak to you right now, every Nigerian farmer is struggling. The reason we are struggling is because we are not subsidized. What stopped the Nigerian Youth Service, above all things? What stopped the Nigerian Youth Service, NYSC, and NPower from ensuring that every single year, hundreds of thousands of Nigerian graduates are mobilized to the farms and subsidize farming across Nigeria? In that way, what you are doing is to develop the average Nigerian undergraduate who will have jobs, who is going to become a farmer and develop their industry. Chinese did it, it worked. American did it, it worked. Britain did it, it worked. Why will it not work here? All of the theories of economy, all of the theories of production, all of the theories of sustainability, all of the theories of sustainable growth that ignores local subsidies and local productivity are theories that are called destructive capitalism. Of course, they will tell you that capitalism has worked well. Guess what? Capitalism has never really existed. Because in the most ultra-capitalist nation in the world, like the United States, you have social security. Am I correct? You have farmer subsidies. Am I correct? You have, look, what is privatization in the first place? Privatization and the concept of a capitalist economy is the socialization of cost. You see? When the economy is suffering, take note, it is always government. When the banks failed, who bailed the banks out in Nigeria? It was central bank. Who is that? Government. When the aviation industry had problem, who bailed the aviation industry out in Nigeria? It was government. When what do you call them? Etisalat had problem recently. Who bailed Etisalat out? Federal government. When Keystone and most of these banks failed, who bailed them out? Federal government. Look at it. Look at it. Government will bail out all these big businesses. Then these big businesses will come out and tell you and I that no, you don't need government in business. What do you need government for? When the energy sector, when the petroleum sector is suffering, who subsidizes them? Government. Guess what is happening? When it is time for government to subsidize you and I, the common man, the average man, they tell you that subsidy is bad, subsidy is good, subsidy is not right. Anybody that tells you subsidy is bad, tell him that he is a bad person. Because the truth is we need to begin to look at ourselves in the eyes and tell ourselves the truth. For us to grow as a country, for our economy to be viable, for our economy to be sustainable, for us to live that dream, for us to make it happen, we must need to understand that when you deregulate, when you talk about free market, when you talk about bringing opening up the market for performance, what you're actually doing is you are killing yourself for the interest of what? Of external forces. Look at the example of the legend. The leader of the Malaysia Revolution, the leader of the Malaysia economic emergence, people like Mahathir Ibn Mohammed. Look at the models of people like Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore. It was premised on nation first. It was premised on what? Nation first. Look, nationalism is the bedrock of development. If you don't have nationalists, anybody that steals from your country and take it to build, to loot it and hand it over to go and buy houses and properties outside your country, is not a nationalist. And when you don't have nationalists, you cannot grow. That's one of the luck we have with the current president, is a nationalist. You can say any other thing you want to say, but it's a nationalist. So we need to begin to understand that localizing productivity means that we must subsidize the component and the tools and the process of production. Once we do that, we will not need to ask ourselves. Government and every private person must understand that it is time to begin to think Nigeria first, to think Nigeria always, and to think Nigeria only. There is no crime in taking care of your country. There is no crime in fighting for the interest of your country, because when you do fight for your country, what you are doing is actually to increase the capacity of your country to become self-sustaining. There is nothing as good as being able to become self-sustaining. And that is what we do with the Nigerian Farmers Group and Cooperative Society. Because right here, what we are doing is to invite Nigerians from all over the world and tell them, it is time for us to think outside oil. It is time for us to think, come to Nigeria and think, what is it that is capable of growing the Nigerian economy from within? If there is anything we have been able to do, is to prove with so much difficulties that once we come together as a united force, we can grow our economy from within. We can sustain our development. We can create that environment, that process that's capable of making all of us, making every one of us enjoy what it means to be a nation that is capable of taking care of our own. I know it's tough. I know it's hard. But if there is anything, what in life is not tough and hard? It is tough and it's hard for all of us. I'm Red Tintedeke once again. This is me discussing briefly, the concept of localizing productivity and subsidizing the component, the tools of production for the sake of the Nigerian people, for the sake of the Nigerian economy, and for the growth and sustainability of our people. It is time to tell hunger bye-bye. It is time to occupy the farms. It is time to farm and feed Nigeria for the good of all. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me and have a wonderful day.